Hi everyone, and welcome to today's demo. Today we've got Crysis for consoles, and joining us is Miles of Crytek. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So Miles, we're looking at Crysis for consoles. This is not to be confused with Crysis 2, which came out earlier this year on the PC and consoles. This is actually the original Crysis from 2007, which was a PC exclusive that really took computers of the day and brought them to their knees.
Absolutely. This is the whole Crysis 1 experience come to PS3 and 360.
Right.
And it's the whole wide-spreading, far-reaching sort of grand-scale maps. It's the superb graphics. It's the nanosuit brought to console with the new nanosuit 2 controls, like Crysis 2.
But I think some of the folks at home might be wondering, now that Crysis 2 is already out, it came out earlier this year, why bring the first Crysis game to consoles?
We wanted people to be able to experience the first Crysis game, to be able to follow the storyline, to be able to re-experience it on consoles, especially people who hadn't had a chance to play on PC because they didn't have a powerful enough PC, or they prefer console games. This is bringing the Crytek, the console, the Crysis experience to console.
Okay, great. So I think we have the game up and running here. Why don't we take a look? What do we have here, Miles? Set this up for us.
This is the fourth mission in the game, in the single-player campaign, and it's Assault, and it's where we've been pushing through to fight back the North Koreans and to get to understand what's really going on the island, and to.
So, right. So yeah, I mean that was kind of the mission that the original Crysis game was kind of all about. Started off seeming like this kind of near future military operation, kind of turned into an alien invasion kind of midstream in the story.
Yes.
So we're seeing the first Crysis kind of running on a console, and I think people were really impressed with the first game, the technology behind it. I think a lot of us, myself included, in 2007 when we first saw the game, thought, how could this game ever run on a console? We're seeing something that looks really, really good here running off an Xbox 360. Tell us about how we were able to get a game that technically demanding onto a console.
It was a huge challenge. We had a lot of things to do on many fronts. We had the memory. The memory was a huge problem to start with, and then the performance, getting it up to speed, as well as pushing the graphics and making it great. We had a huge jump start from CryEngine 3 and from the work that the guys did on Crysis 2 to bring it to consoles. And then we just had to treat the specifics of Crysis and get that running. The large-scale maps, for instance, were the big problem. Coping with the streaming system, well, the memory was the biggest concern, though, getting that to fit on the console.
Yeah, it looks like we're seeing one of the things that I think the first Crysis game was very famous for was these big open-ended environments with lots of jungle terrain. Can you tell us about how Crytek was able to take all this kind of foliage, all the trees, and all the bushes and stuff, and really get that to work in the console game?
We had to spend a lot of time looking into specific optimization techniques. To do with the placement of the vegetation, to do with the assets themselves. The artists spent a lot of time trimming down the excess bits from them just to optimize them. And in most cases, they took assets and actually made them look better for this version of the game. And it was a broad effort across all the departments to try and push to make this happen. It was not just the programming side, but also the art side.
Right. I mean, I would imagine, given that Crysis 2, I guess, was powered by the next rev of Crytek's technology, CryEngine 2. I guess there are probably some lessons learned there from bringing Crysis 2 to consoles. Were we able to take some of that stuff and bring it back to
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. It was. Crysis has its own unique aspects that need pushing, but yes, there's a lot learned from bringing Crysis 2 to consoles.
And so we're seeing now we're kind of leaning pretty hard on that machine gun. It looks like we've got a lot of the kind of the great special effects we saw from the first Crysis, muzzle flare. Particle effects. How much of that stuff were we able to carry over into the console version?
We've kept everything in there. We've had to make adjustments to optimize things to make them fit on. But so many of the effects we've made it better. The lighting has been remastered all across the game, and you can see that the day-night transition is beginning to come into effect here. We've had color grading come in to produce these wonderful-looking visuals. We've had so many changes to the more technical side of the pipeline. More things are happening now in high dynamic range. We've got better screen to assembly occlusion. We've got better motion blur. There's a specific anti-aliasing system designed just for Crysis with its natural environments. There's been a lot of fronts we've had to work on to push this. And we really feel as though the visuals have actually been taken up to a good level. I mean, we've been surprised how far we've managed to push this, and we're so happy that we've managed to get to this level. We never intended, or never were going to release this unless we could really be happy with this and really take it up to this visual level that people expect from Crysis.
Yeah, this looks really, really good for a console game. So yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, so the team's goal is to get basically kind of a picture perfect or pitch perfect port of the PC version. Was any content cut, or is it all, completely all there? Every last mission, every last piece of geometry, every last building. Is it really pretty much all there, the full Crysis experience?
So we decided to take out Ascension, one of the later levels, especially based on fan feedback. They didn't really enjoy it, and we didn't really feel as though it fit in well. So that was removed, but every other level is there and is full and complete and as big and large scale as it was before. We've got all the missions, we've got all the sub-objectives. The rest of the game is there.
Mm-hmm. But for the folks at home who may not have heard, so this is going to be a port of the single-player game of Crysis, is that correct? The multiplayer is not?
That's right, yes.
Right.
Yeah, we focus on the single-player.
Right. Yes. So this is another thing I think that was very impressive about the first Crysis. You didn't maybe hear a lot of people talk as much about, was that the AI was really good for the enemies. We had enemy soldiers who would back each other up, who would take cover, who would try to flank you. Tell us about how you guys were able to take the AI from the PC game and kind of cram it onto a console.
Again, it was a big effort went into that. We had a lot of guys working for quite a while, making sure we could deliver the same high-quality experience as people have on PC. One of the things we've had the opportunity to do is fix a lot more bugs in the game as well. The PC game wasn't perfect, it had its flaws, and we spent a lot of time polishing every aspect of it, including the AI, making sure the behaviours are just right and they react really well towards it.
Mm-hmm. Were there any, I mean, the original Crysis, for me, as a PC game player, it was kind of like, the ultimate PC game. It was a first-person shooter that was really technically demanding, that looked fantastic. And for me, I prefer playing my shooters on a mouse and keyboard, so I was very happy to play a game that looked that good with what I consider to be, the superior control scheme. But of course, Crysis 2 came out on both PC and consoles. I'm sure Crytek learned a lot of lessons about, adapting a shooter to, be as fun and enjoyable and responsive on a console controller. Can you talk about some of the lessons that you guys brought from the Crysis 2 control scheme to make the Crysis 1 console port, be a good experience as well?
Sure. I mean, that's something we spent a lot of time doing. We had to adapt the nanosuit to make sure it fit in with Crysis, which was essentially the nanosuit 2 controls from Crysis 2, but we had to tweak all the values, and we had a lot of the design team spending a lot of time making sure they were just right, making sure that the weapon, the aiming speeds were quick enough, the motion speed was good, making sure they just minute by minute, second by second gameplay was just spot on. And we've had to, we worked hard with the controller, just making sure we could fit every action on there we wanted to do. We've introduced a new weapon selection system that allows you to choose more easily the weapons you have available, as well as just a quick toggle from when you last had. But we've kept all the features we had before. We have, all the grenade types you can select, and you can choose all the fire modes. You can have underslung grenade launchers.
And we've got the drivable vehicles as well here.
And drivable vehicles,
yeah.
And again, time has been spent to make sure they react well. And it was a challenge bringing those elements all into Crysis on the control scheme, and we think we've done a good job with it.
Yeah. So from the looks of it, it's really a very authentic version of the classic 2007 PC game brought home on the consoles. And Miles, for the folks at home, if you can remind us when the game is coming out and for which platforms?
Crysis 1 on console is coming out for 360 and PS3 on October 4th. It's October 5th for PS3 in Europe.
Okay, great. So that was your daily